My name's Matt Spurl. I was born in Kamloops, raised in the greater interior of British Columbia. I'm the fifth born of seven, and yeah, we lived in a small little lakeside community originally when I was born, and it's called Pinatan Lake. And then we moved to Pritchard, and we had a small little hobby farm there, so that was sweet having 5 acres of land to run around on, raise hell, and light it on fire a few times with my brothers. Yeah, so a lot of the churches I went to as a young teenager and young man, they were heavily works based, and one of those works was tongues. And I was playing guitar as part of the praise team, and I really enjoyed that. But when we got a new pastor, he found out I couldn't speak in tongues, and so they kicked me off the praise team because they saw that as a sign of me not being fully saved. And so, yeah, that was really unfortunate because I really enjoyed playing guitar for God. And honestly, that's where my heart was at when I was playing. It wasn't for myself, it wasn't for the people in the congregation, it was for God. Like, to be fair, I think when I was playing guitar for the church, and though I was playing it for God, I didn't realize how lost I was because I was going and hanging out with kids down in the trailer park and getting drunk all the time, smoking weed once or twice. But that's pretty good sign of not being fully converted. So in a way, they were kind of right. Yeah, so I got married in 2015 at the age of 28. Asked her dad for permission and everything because I thought that was proper. And yeah, and then got her pregnant before we even got married. And well, I needed Jesus. That's what I needed. I needed the gospel, and I needed Jesus. That's what I needed. I kind of chalked that up to just having a hard time finding a good church that was really good at preaching the gospel, because I ran into several churches that just really didn't treat us well. So my dad, he was a pastor, and he quit being a pastor long before I was born, but he worked at the Kamloops Christian Hostel. And so when I'd go to church, I would talk to my dad about it after church, and he would explain to me, no, salvation is by grace through faith. And despite that, I still kind of, because of all the constant influence throughout my life of all the churches, being that kind of legalistic side, talking about needing works, I kind of got lost in that myself. No matter how hard I'd correct myself in my own head, I couldn't seem to get past that kind of influence of making me think, no, it is works that save you. Like, I knew the gospel, but I also had a lot of wrong perceptions kind of drilled into my head over the years to try and keep to just the gospel and not any of the extras. That was the real challenge. Yeah, I would say it definitely, that mentality really helped to ruin my marriage. I think we split up I think it was within a few months. I found out she was cheating, and I forgave her a few times and, tried to salvage the marriage, but because of my anger towards what she had done, it was really hard to just go on like everything was normal. There was always that doubt in my mind. I always had hope that there was going to be a way to make it work, but it just, the constant cheating, and I couldn't just keep forgiving her. So I eventually kicked her out and we split. And it's one of those things, right? It's like reading Habakkuk or Job. You're like, dang, that sucks, but in the end it was for the glory of God, right? Like, if I hadn't have gone through all that hardship and heartache and heartbreak or whatever you want to call it. Like, it felt horrible, but in the end, I realized that that was Christ loving me, like me trying to love my wife and all that pain. And I wasn't able to love her like Christ loved me. And then when I realized Christ loves me despite my actions constantly, like, I was just blown away. Yeah, just to sum it up, I kind of moved to Saskatoon for a bunch of different reasons, kind of tied to family, and didn't turn out the way I was expecting, but now I'm coming to Grace, so it turned out pretty sweet. Originally, because I had a slip disc in my neck that was causing what they call cervical nerve damage, which just means round in the round of your neck. So that gives me some pretty brutal neck pain that causes headaches, and then causes the muscles in my back to tense up, which aggravates scoliosis. I was on disability and couldn't work, and I guess I could say the family situation just turned sour, and I ended up homeless. And I remember going to the social services downtown and going to see a worker and carrying all my belongings on my back with scoliosis and being in severe pain, and just thinking, like, God, I could really use somebody right now. Like, I could use somebody just to hang out with, even for a coffee. I stopped at the lighthouse to get some water because I'd already been there, and I know I could get some water and rest my legs and rest my back. And while I was sitting there in the lobby, Dave comes walking in with his gumboots on and silly, serious smile on his face, and asks me what I'm doing there. And so I kind of started telling him about the horror story that was my life. And yeah, he told me, well, I'm having a Bible study. So I was like, stood up right away. I'm like, I'm in. Like, as soon as I heard Bible study, I was just like, sweet, another Christian. It's exactly what I needed, and an answer to my prayer. And yeah, had a really good Bible study with him, and remember quizzing him after, asking him all sorts of questions about the Bible, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Do you know about this? Do you know about that? But then he'd always retort with, well, how did you move here? How did you end up homeless? And, you know, what can I do to help? Yeah, he's just a really genuinely concerned guy. And I was like, wait a second, this guy doesn't care about all the rules. But yeah, so I asked him if we could go for coffee sometime, and he said sure, and I was just like, sweet. And yeah, went from there, and now he's my best friend on this earth other than Christ. He wouldn't ever give up asking me to come to his church, and I remember thinking, I bet you it's got all sorts of issues. I bet you it's got all kinds of doctrinal errors. And, you know, going to so many churches where I'd experienced that, I was really leery of going to another church where I'd experienced that. But eventually I kind of realized, well, if he's going there, you know, maybe there's some other people there like him at the very least. And yeah, I remember finally, after 3 months of telling him no, that I didn't want to go, or maybes, and then not showing up, I eventually finally showed up one week, and it was just the gospel. Plain, simple, pure, not adulterated or anything. It was just the gospel. And I remember specifically walking up to Murray after the service and thanking him because he just preached the gospel. To me, that was mind-blowing. Yeah, I remember one sermon specifically that hit me pretty hard, right close to home in the heart. Was a sermon on Hosea. It was called The Heart of God. And I remember sitting there, and Murray started talking about how God had told Hosea to go marry a whore. And I remember thinking that I should just get up and leave, because I didn't want to hear it. You know, it started kind of bringing up past emotions and the pain. And I remember kind of fighting with myself and finally sitting it out and realizing that I wasn't Hosea, because I couldn't love my wife like that. I couldn't love anyone like that. And I realized that I was Gomer, and all this times I sinned, continued to sin, that I was doing to Christ what people in relationships in my past had done to me. It was devastating to realize that, I was hurting God that much at the very least, and likely more. And I really realized that I needed to repent, and I wasn't justified, and I needed God to change me because I wasn't able to do it on my own. God's after our heart. He's not after what we've done. He wants us to love him. Like he said, the most important commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, strength, soul, and mind. Because a few years ago I was pretty miserable, and I often read Job because I'd read Job just to go, okay, well, he had it worse than me, But then as I spent more time at Grace and more time with the community groups and listening to the sermons, I realized that I was looking at a lot of the stories wrong, especially when we went through Habakkuk. I realized that, there was no time to sit there and mourn over the things that had happened in my past. I realized those things were showing me God's love, and that I needed to rejoice like Habakkuk rejoiced in the end of Habakkuk there. It doesn't matter if things are going to go horribly on this earth, because we have Christ and we have new life and we have the promise of the new creation. Yeah, if you're broken, worn down, beaten, feeling like life's just giving you a hard time, I always look to Matthew 11:28-30. Verse 28 says, "Come to me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And then verse 30 says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." And it truly is, because I look back at anything in my past, and there's a lot of heavy, burdensome stuff there. And now I just look back with a peace, knowing that none of that matters, because I've got Christ. Yeah, it's the most freeing feeling I've ever had, knowing that I don't have to carry it anymore.